Today, my guest is Bambi, and she's in the UK. She owns a nursery, which is a establishment for 2 to 5 year olds, and she runs that as her business. But she got diagnosed just under 4 years ago with rheumatoid arthritis, and so it's been a really, really tough time for her. But she's got a fantastic story to share with us today, and we're going to hear about the ups and downs and the challenges, but also how she was able to turn around this very, very challenging disease. So, Bambi, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Clint. I'm very happy that I'm finally sharing my story with you. It's the perfect time, you know. So I just wanted to say that so my experience. So this started it was March 2015, and it was very, very similar to your experience. So I kind of got out of bed one day, and both my ankles were like immediate pain. And I remember trying to come down the stairs to the kitchen for breakfast, thinking, oh, this is painful. I must have hurt myself. That was my immediate thing. So that kind of went on for the week, and things weren't getting better. And I went to the doctors, and the doctor said to me, come back in about 3 weeks. He said, maybe you've just got some tender joints. It could be that you've hurt yourself. You know, that was that. So when I went back, things had worsened for me. You know, I was struggling. I was taking one step at a time. You know, it was kind of severe. And I went back, and he said, oh, we'll do some bloods. So he did the bloods. I went back, and he said, no, he said, there's nothing wrong. You haven't got arthritis. And he referred to arthritis, not rheumatoid. I wasn't aware what rheumatoid arthritis was at that point. And he said, no, you're fine. And it was all, you know, and I remember doing this, bowing down like this.
Yeah.
And he said to me, hey, don't be upset. He said, you're all good. And I said, so why can't I walk? I said to him. So he said, look, give it a month and come back. So cut long story short, I went back. By the time I went back, my arms were bowed.
Mm.
So they were bowed. I was in severe pain. And as you mentioned, Clint, I have a nursery school. By that time, I was struggling. I was getting into work, and, you know, everything was a struggle for me. And I just didn't know what was wrong. So I went back to the GP, and he said, I'll do a referral for you. So that was, by this time, we were looking at end of April, May, you know. So things got worse, but I kind of just got on with it. You know, I didn't think, you know, of anything serious. I didn't know what I thought. By September, I'd called the hospital, and I said, look, I'm waiting for a referral. I haven't heard anything. And obviously, you know, things in the UK, NHS appointments are very, very slow. You know, so you kind of accept that, and you carry on. And she said, we don't have a referral for you, she said. You know, so I basically slit the net, as they say. There was no referral. They'd lost it. So then I went back to him, and then he did another one. So we're looking at winter now. By this time, work was a struggle. I was quite down. I was very willing to kind of lock up the school and think, right, my business is over. I can't do this now. I had the school for about 13 years by then, so it was really established, but things were difficult. My home life, I care for my husband as well. He's partially blind. So I had all that to deal with as well. So I think I was just riding this horse and trying to get on with it, you know, being there for my husband who needed care, but also my difficulty. So by December of 2015, I went private. I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I went private with my husband. I had some bloods done before I went. And I remember walking in to see this consultant, who is now my consultant now, NHS. And he looked at me, and he said, take a seat. And he looked at my bloods, and without examining me, he said, you've got rheumatoid arthritis. And he said, this is one of the worst cases I've ever seen. He said, because by that time I was really severe. You know, my joints were swollen, everything. I was struggling to walk. And I said to him, what's that? What's rheumatoid arthritis? What's the difference? And he said, you have an autoimmune disease. He said, your immune system is attacking your joints, and that's hence why your body's inflamed. And he examined me, and he said, this is terrible. And he kind of shook his head and said, you've really slipped the net of the NHS. He said, this is awful. And it was funny because we were going to Disneyland, I think 2 days after, and he gave me an injection, the steroid injection. And he said, I will make sure that you come and see me prior, through NHS. And that injection just got me through the holiday. It was amazing. It was a real lift, my mental state. And then it was funny because that was 22nd of December 2015. And then by January the 6th, I was straight in for an appointment with him. So everything happened very quick, which is interesting how, it can be done. So I saw him there, and he gave me scans on my joints and all of that, all examinations, x-rays, and then said, which is very similar to when I heard your story, Clint, about, we're going to put you on methotrexate, and this is this, and it's going to do this. And it's like, I'll see you later, I remember feeling really scared about it all, but I was also very desperate. I had a business to run. I had to look after my family. There was a lot going on. And, I went on the methotrexate, 25 milligrams. It was a really high dose. The hydroxychloroquine.
Plaquenil.
Yes, all of that. I don't know the equivalent to that, actually, because hydroxychloroquine. I don't know if there's because I don't see that particular medication often on other people's experiences, so I don't know if there's an equivalent. But anyway, I was on that 200 milligrams a day, so I was on everything basically. So that started from January 2016, and that just continued, and it was awful. It was the medication, the side effects of the methotrexate, the Monday evenings, and then, struggling to go to work the next day. By Thursday, I was back in the room and alert again, the sickness, the infection after infection. By June 2016, I had neutropenia, so no immunity in my body. Them saying you have to come to A&E, and you need to be careful. I work with children. How am I going to be? All of that. So it was a really, really scary journey with all the medication, and knowing that I didn't want to be on this. I was very anti-medication. My children have been on antibiotics once in their lives. It was very anti for us here. So that was tough. And with the joints, things improved slightly, but didn't. If I had an infection, I had flare-ups. So in my eyes, I was going round in a big circle, and then I became quite depressed. My mental state wasn't good. I was very unhappy. I struggled with everything. But I was consistent in the running of my home, my children, looking after my husband. All of that was consistent, but I wasn't happy. I was referred for counselling, just to deal with this illness that I wasn't familiar with as well. And it just kind of went on, and I had a good day, a bad day, but overall, I was never myself. The medication was really, I felt it wasn't helping me. I wasn't saying, wow, I can do this again, and I can do this. I was still struggling. And the chronic pain. Someone once said to me, Bambi, your face has been lifted. And I didn't get what they said. And I said, what do you mean? And she said to me, you were always in pain. Your face said it all, you
Mm.
know. But anyway, so that went on for over a year. So we're looking at like 2017, excuse me, 2017. And I was on social media, I was on Facebook, and I'm obviously part of the Rheumatoid Arthritis page. And somebody had written, this was back in May 2017, and someone had written, is there any diet I can look at to help my pain, etc. And somebody had written, look up Clint Paddison, and that was it. There was a link, and that was it. So I remember being there with my husband, and I kind of clicked on it. And the first, I just remember your blue shirt, yeah, because it was a conference. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
your story, and I remember watching it with my husband Bobby, and I was just like, and I could relate to it because it was so similar to me.
Mm.
You walking away from them offering you methotrexate and going back because things became so severe, and
Mm.
you know, and and I remember looking at Bobby and looking at him and saying, Bobby, I've got to do something about this, and it was from then that I researched and I looked at your podcast, and the first thing I bought was my juicer,
Mm.
and we immediately started juicing. I could show you our batch of celery and cucumber that we do every day and stuff, and Bobby does it with me, which is great. And that's been consistent, and I just started introducing this plant based. I did it very slowly. I didn't say, right, that's it, I'm vegan, I'm right, that's it. I did it very slowly, which was the best thing. I kept a log. So I kept a log of things that I was eating, and things, that I was slowly taking away. So the juicing came first. We did the juicing, the detox, as you had said. And then I just slowly started taking things away from my diet and then bringing in other things into the diet. And that's how I did it. So that kind of went on. And immediately I saw um, a difference in me. And I remember being at the nursery school, and and normally with, when the children are looking up at me, I was never able to kind of get down on my knees or crouch anymore. I wasn't able to do that for years. And I remember all of a sudden just, a little girl saying, Bambi, Bambi. And I crouched down. So I was eye level with her saying, what's the matter, darling? And she was talking to me. And I remember looking down, thinking, I've just crouched down with no pain, with nothing. And I looked and I thought, and I thought, goodness me. And I was then able to get back on the floor with them and cross my legs and silly things that people would not appreciate. But things for me with my work was so tough. And, my physical thing was great. I was able to do that, and that was immediate. And I remember in July of that year, Clint, I went to Greece on holiday, and my husband was over here. He'd flown back, and I videoed. I wish I had it to show. And I videoed. I went, watch this, Bobby, and I ran round our little front garden. I ran, like I did a couple of laps, and I sent it to him. And I remember him saying, "You're amazing." And it wasn't, but it was a real lift for me. I hadn't done that for years, you know. So things had kind of, it was an immediate effect. And the more I felt better, the more I, was so kind of focused. And I remember going to the consultant in the September. So the plant-based started it was June the 24th. And then by September, I'd gone. And my inflammation levels for my test were 0. Okay. And I'd never had this. And this was the nurse, the rheumatologist nurse. And she said to me, and I'd cut down the methotrexate. And she said, why have you done that? And I said, because I feel great and I will do this. Because why should I be on something that's not helping me? And she said, I need to speak to your consultant. And she was a bit like that. But she was also quite impressed. But was kind of like this, you know, better not tell her that I'm really impressed. And went off and came back and she said, your consultant says, carry on, but don't be dropping off any medication, but, do what you're doing and we'll see you in 6 months. So I did. I carried on and I just got better and better. And my blood results came back normal every time, and it's been so consistent. I have had flare-ups in between. I had a car accident back in June last year, which caused a flare-up. The shock of the accident gave me a flare-up. But I found that with the flare-ups that I was having, I was able to manage better. They were. I was able to manage it. They didn't last as long, and then I was kind of moving on. Infections, skin infections that I had on my feet, my fingers, went. Things like that were just kind of moving on so quicker. My immunity, was stronger. I was recovering from colds quicker. Everything. I'm asthmatic as well, so I found that I wasn't on my preventers anymore. My checkups were kind of, okay. The colds that I had disappeared. But what I found that was if I ate something that I shouldn't have or something was in ingredients, then I recognised it straight away. There was pain. There was slight pain in my hands, maybe, or especially my left knee. So I thought, gosh, there must have been something in that, and there was. So, and you put something recently about recovering from eating something that you shouldn't have, and I think we need to kind of look at that, even more of how to recover from something that you may have eaten. So overall, Clint, it kind of has been consistent. And then when I saw my consultant, this was last March 2018, and everything was good. And he said to me, you're making a big mistake, he said. And I said, why? He said, because your diet will not be the thing that will make you better. You need the meds. And I said, well, the meds are there whenever I need them. I said, so, I'm just going to carry on. And then what happened from then, he was supposed to, he said to me, let's drop the hydrocloxacin. He said, let's drop that in September. So he dropped it by 100 grams and then milligrams. And then I went off it in September. Now, he said, let's review you in September and we'll discuss about dropping the methotrexate, since. But then he cancelled the appointment. The appointment was cancelled by the NHS. And then the appointment was cancelled by March 2019. So 2 appointments were cancelled. Now, he had said to me, we'll discuss methotrexate in September 2018 and see if we, we'll get you off it if we need to. Now, 2 appointments were cancelled, but in the meantime, I'm plant-based. I'm carrying on doing what Dr. Bambi is saying, and I've cut my methotrexate by a ridiculous amount. I think I was on 2.5 milligrams by then, So I had a flare-up, an infection, a chest infection of this year, April 2019, that took me a long time to recover from. And then I went and saw the consultant who was not my consultant, but someone who was covering for him, June the 25th, which is 2 years that I had changed my diet to plant-based. And she examined me, and she said, what dosage are you on? And I told her. She said, why have you dropped it so much? And I said, well, when a consultant tells you he'll see you in September 2018 and he doesn't, then he doesn't see you in March 2019, then I'm doing what is right for my body. And if I'm well and my bloods are showing that, then what am I doing? And she examined me and she said to me, come off it, come off everything. And I just wanted to read you, Clint, just the letter that I got after that visit. Okay. And she says, okay, I reviewed Mrs. Nicholas today. She's doing very well. She has not had any joint swellings. An x-ray had shown evidence of osteoarthritis on the knee, which, okay. She started reducing the dose herself and she was hoping to see the doctor. I understand a couple of appointments have been cancelled. There is no rheumatoid arthritis visual, no swollen joints, no tender joints, visual analog score 10 out of 100, CRP 2. And she says at the end, we will see her again in 6 months. All being well, she can then be discharged. You know. And I remember her saying to me, come off it, it's not doing anything for you, and she said, your bloods are so consistent, and they had been for 2 years. And I remember I was actually in shock, and I walked out of there and I got into my car and I actually cried. And I cried over, I can't believe I finally heard them say, come off all meds, and I remember, messaging my children and my husband and saying, I've done it. And that's all I could say to them, I've done it. So my focus now is that I continue this, you get into this routine of, your food and everything, it becomes very much part of you, and why would I look at a piece of steak and I look at that and I think, well, that's pain. Why would I put that in my body? And it's funny because you become so aware of autoimmune diseases when you have one yourself. And I remember I have someone, a colleague of mine, who has been taking methotrexate for 14 years, and I'm like, come on, And she said, but I love meat. And I think a lot of people are very challenged by changing diets. And I think it just shows how tough it is. But, I did it. And, my mindset is clearer. I'm in a good place. I do have pain now and again. But, I'm able to do this. I'm able to run. Just amazing where I've come. And, my husband says, you can do it, Bams. You've done it. I'm so proud, and my children are proud. I remember you said once, Clint, there was something that you had said, like, if you're feeling good, take the stairs, don't take the lift, and that, things like that. And it is about, programming yourself and say, you can do this, whether you're in a bit of pain, you can do this. And I remember going to the hospital for an appointment, and it was the same routine because I went so often, it became kind of my second home initially. And I pressed that elevator, the button to go down, and and I was feeling really good. My results were good, and I went to visit them, and I knew that it would be good. And I messaged you, I don't know if you remember, and I said, I took the stairs. I was on the 4th floor. I took the stairs, And it wasn't just the physical aspect of taking the stairs, but just the mind saying, you can do this, you can fix yourself. So that, I suppose that's where I'm at, really, and we juice, we love juicing, and it's good because the family do it. My husband juices with me. We've learned so much from this, and it saddens me, that yes, we have medication. Medication is here for us, and I knew that my consultant was looking at me thinking, wow, you've done really well. But it's like they're unable to say, well, you've done really well. There's so much, so many, I don't know, politics
Sure.
in it. That's what I felt from my experience. Yes. So yeah,
Well
that's right.
done and well explained. We really really enjoyed following that journey along that you told so well just then. And let's not get focused on what we can't change at the moment, which is the medical establishment.
Yes,
Um,
that's right.
let's just focus on the things that we can change and we have our power over, which is what
Yeah.
we put in our body and how we move our body and the way we think. We can change the way we think, and the example of taking the stairs is a good
Yes.
sort of example of doing that and just having a mindset shift. And maybe we can't do it every time, but where we can, we should challenge the body, try and get it to respond, and we learn new things and we establish new neuro pathways in the brain where the brain starts
Yeah.
looking for physical challenges as opposed to trying to look for ways to avoid them. But even all healthy humans are programmed to conserve energy, right? If we look at how our society has become. Now you can order fast food to be delivered to your house. So not only are you eating food that's
Mm,
atrocious for you, but now you
yes.
can have that delivered. And
On your
so
door.
you're not even having to walk from your
No.
car into the restaurant to pick up the crap. The crap just lands on your lap. So
Yes.
the humans are just the desire to avoid energy
Mm,
exertion is insane. But if I just attended a conference called Plant Stock here in the US, and one of the speakers was Dan Buettner, who wrote a book called The Blue Zones, and I should get him as a guest on this podcast. And the relevance of why I'm bringing this up is he talked about longevity and people who live to 100 and the areas around the world where we have the most people living to 100, and there's four or
yeah.
five places. And one thing they do amongst sort of four or five key consistent things that these communities do to live very long time is they're constantly moving, constantly. Okay, so
Mm,
they tend to live on hill slopes and things where they have to walk up a hill just to go and go
yeah.
to their garden, which happens to be another thing. Most of them have some kind of source of locally supplied foods, much of which they create themselves, small
Yeah.
communities in gardens. So
Yes.
they're constantly moving throughout the day, and so the seeking of physical challenge when we're not constantly moving throughout the day is kind of really important. So tell me this, the as I put myself in the minds of people listening to this, a few
Yeah.
questions come to mind. Uh, it seems to be that your body was responding really excellently to the change in foods. Did you find that some foods did not work for you, and some things completely were not successful at all?
Um, I think because I had an immediate effect of my well-being. I didn't find that anything didn't, and obviously because I kind of took things out slowly, I was able to measure it a little bit more accurately. I knew that anything with eggs gave me severe pain. um, you know the red meat had gone kind of, I kind of got rid of the red meat very quickly, and the fish came later. But the juicing was it gave me more energy. It was good for my bowels. It just kind of started off the day really really well. There's no overeating because that's quite filling, and it's a really good drink. It's people say, oh no celery, but you can't. I mean, today I had celery, cucumber, ginger, and garlic in it because I have blood pressure. So it's amazing what you can do. So I don't think there was anything that didn't work for
Mm.
me.
Mm.
um, but I just enjoy it, Clint. I enjoy it, and with my cuisine and my cooking that I do, you know, um, there's a lot of plant based in it. There's a lot of pulses that we eat, lentils, all of that, beans. We're not real meat eaters anyway, and neither are the children. So I think it was easier to kind of, adapt to that, but just bringing in things like quinoa, which I never had. And, I kind of bought some seaweed and thought, oh my gosh, this is a bit challenging. But just the juicing was the first thing that I found really good. But it was just interesting how I had immediate effect, being able to kind of get down to the floor to speak to a child on eye level rather than looking down, because I just couldn't get down there. That was immediate. So yes, but I think keeping a log was really good for me. It just helped me, and it was like, right, yeah, that, and then introduce this. So, and replacing things like, with more fiber and more brown rices and all of that, and pastas, and, and oils as well. We don't really have, but we have a lot of, being Mediterranean, we use a lot of olive oil. But just kind of cutting down. And I think what's been really good is that, my children and my husband follow it. They're not vegans, but, they're happy to have plant-based meal because it's no different for them. They might have some chicken one day. That might be once, twice a week. They've adapted really, really well, and they see how different I am. That in a way, it's like mummy's back. And the support that I've had from my family, from my children, my husband, my friend, has been amazing. And if you were to ask me what are the struggles of, I think some people who just don't understand, who would say, do you really think it's because you're plant-based and not the medication? Well, I'm proof. I can put my arms up. Look, I couldn't do that before. So, yes. So, yeah.
Let me see. What are we missing here? We've covered the support thing, which is crucial. And we notice so often that when we're really struggling, we're trying to do this on our own. And your family has obviously been a 10 out of 10, tremendous help for you.
Absolutely.
And if someone is trying to do this on their own, and whilst potentially even looking after a child or two on their own, or try and run a business and not have any support, I mean, it's just so much more difficult. And I would encourage those people to consider our support group, which is designed for that exact purpose, to offer support and guidance. So we've covered that. We've covered the diet. Your exercise. Did you really ramp up the exercise?
The exercise was very slow initially because I used to walk a lot. Used to walk the dog and everything, and that kind of immediately stopped. And it stopped for a long, long time. And then they did refer me to physio, and actually the guy that I used to see saw me when I was in a really bad way. So that was kind of in the April. Then I changed, started changing the diet, and I'd mentioned you to him, and then I was seeing him for almost a year, and he couldn't believe it. And he said, Bambi, you're an inspiration to many, and he was the one who said to me, you need to get out there, slowly. Even if you're in some pain, you've got to challenge yourself. So I was doing like walks and walking again. Sometimes my husband says, was that you going down the stairs? I'm like, yeah, wow. Because I don't realise that it's so natural now, that I can kind of go down. But by the time, when I said that I had the initial pains in the ankles, by 4 or 5 weeks on from that, I was shuffling down, on my bottom. It was so severe, tough, Clint. It was tough times, I must say.
Yes, that's right. And a lot of people are still in those tough times, and they listen to or watch this podcast because they want to learn and gather more clues as to the path forward for them and be inspired. So let's speak to those before we wrap up, those people in that situation. put yourself back there. Think about what you now know about what you've been through.
Yeah.
What are some key tips? They could be mindset. It could be nothing to do with diet and exercise, or it could be something within those categories. What are
Yeah.
the key things that if you had to instruct someone, what would be the key things to do?
I think from my own experience is the um, introducing it slowly, because I think um, psychologically, if you kind of put it in, all right, I'm changing my diet, I'm going plant based, that you might not manage that psychologically, So I think you have to introduce it slowly. I think keeping a log is always so important, because you actually, for me, you're so in touch with your body. So all that time that I was in agony, I didn't know it's because I had a fried egg in the morning, or that I was having a piece of steak. All these things that I'd obviously um, made me more unwell. The pain was severe, it was chronic, it was there all the time. So I think being more in touch with your own body by what you eat, and introducing it slowly. I think another thing is, we're all different people here. People look at me and say, "Oh, I could never do what you've done." And you find that everyone's got an opinion. Some would be more encouraging. Mum say, "Oh, no, no, not for me," or what have you. But I think you need to kind of focus on yourself and what you want. You want pain free. You're not going to ever cure yourself, but you can have a good life by being pain free, by maintaining. I think it's the maintaining. And don't avoid these people who haven't got in the nicest way. Do you see what I mean? Their opinions, you have to really focus on what you want, and receive that support from people who really do understand. I mean, people have seen how bad I was, my own family, my children, I had to care for my husband. All I wanted was to be better, because I have someone I have to look after. He's visually impaired. That was a challenge for me. My husband actually said, "Gosh, I wish this didn't happen to you." But me, like, it was really traumatic at the time.
Mm,
So I think focus is really key.
mm,
Focus is definitely key.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
You can't go half in with this, especially when you're in so much pain. I mean, I remember when I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
trying to write jokes in the morning, waking up and sitting at my desk and trying to come up with material. Not only did the last thing on my mind would be to try and you know create humor when I was struggling, and secondly, my hand couldn't hold the pen properly; it would hurt, and
Yeah.
so and I'm
Yeah.
thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I trying
Yeah.
to push forward here when all the signals in my life are that I got to do something enormous to try and stop this, and that
Yeah.
just sort of tinkering around the edges here is clearly not working. And so yeah, I had to, you kind of got to go into maintenance mode with the rest of your life. So it's not
Yeah.
like, in your case, it's not like you don't show up to work. You show up to work, but maybe you don't take on an expansion project and double your business that year. That's not the year to do it.
Yeah.
That year is the year just to maybe try and hit the same kind of targets and keep everyone happy as what you did last year in maintenance mode while you focus all your excess energy into trying to
Absolutely.
get well. Mm,
It's interesting because I look back now and think, I actually went to work. How did I manage that? But I did. And I
mm,
did because I had to. I
mm-hmm,
had to be focused. I took loads of painkillers, I remember. And I thought, no. And I was in such a bad way that I thought, I need to just walk away from this business, because
mm,
I can't. And don't forget, I was on this medication that I would go into work on a Tuesday feeling really poorly,
yeah.
and then it zapped my energy. So I'd come home and sleep all the time. And then by Thursday, it was like, I'm back here. I'm okay. Oh, goodness, it's Monday soon. And then we go, and how I managed that, I don't know, but you do. And when I saw when I had that link, and I remember looking at Bobby thinking, Bobby, I've got to do something about this. I can't just, take all this medication. It's not right.
Mm.
So yes, and maintaining is important. But I think the other thing, what I'd mentioned earlier, was that we have to understand that going plant based is not going to be always smooth. There will be hiccups, and I've had flare ups, whether I had an infection, whether it was a shock to the system because of an accident. But there will be flare ups. I remember thinking, I was really well, and I was on the diet, and everything was good, and I had a hiccup, and I had pain, and it wasn't severe pain, but I remember feeling very anxious, and in a way I panicked and thought, I don't want this pain anymore. I don't want this pain anymore. And I think we need to learn to kind of deal with that it will happen, but it's how we deal with it. And if you're so in touch with your body and what you're doing, then you can get through it. I've got through a few flare-ups, and I'm back here. And even now, if I have some pain, I'm able to manage it better psychologically, physically, So you become more stronger with it all, definitely. Don't be afraid of pain. I think what I'm trying to say, that if you have a flare up, you can get back on that path,
Yeah.
And also, Clint, that what you had there was a link I saw actually when I was away, that if you have eaten something that you shouldn't have, that procedure, I read that because I was on holiday and I thought, goodness, this is so much more difficult. But going back to the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
we go to Greece every year, and we bought a juicer and took this juicer with us to Greece, and here we are at the supermarket buying all the stuff, and we're just carrying on like we do in here. So you can do it. It can be done.
That sort of stuff's happening more and more worldwide as the crew are all bringing their juices and stuff following this program. So, well, thank you. And it's interesting for me, as from the business point of view, or just trying to reach more people point of view, that someone posted a link, and it was that one link that got you to click through. And I just want to make a point that's interesting, and I've observed in the last 12 months or so. Sometimes when we stick our neck out, when we put a link on Facebook groups or online forums, we open up ourselves to criticism, because other people who are, like you described earlier, the meat eaters, or the people who have dabbled in a different kind of approach like a keto or paleo and not had success, and have become very bitter and critical of other people when they change their diet or want to seek another path, they quickly jump on some comment like that and become very negative, and this can be very dissuasive to then in the future post a link again. And I've actually encouraged my audience to stay away from negative Facebook groups and negative online forums, which has meant, as they have done so, that now those links are actually more scarce. And so people are not on those platforms because they're out getting well. And so those platforms of more, the higher percentage of people who are either not supportive of the plant-based approach or are unaware of it, more people. So look, if the opportunity arrives, if people are listening to this or watching this, please do stick your neck out and just say, hey, you might want to try this, because whilst there might be a little bit of criticism come your way and say, hey, that doesn't work, just because that's what people are like, you might reach someone like Bambi and change their life.
Absolutely. I agree. And that's obviously what I had said, that, some opinions need to be pushed away, and social media can be a little bit like that. But I think for me, I believe that, and I was never on Facebook, but I'd added this page initially to get some advice and that, and and there it was. There was just this link to you, and all I remember is your blue shirt.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Thank you, Bambi. This has been very enjoyable, and you've made my job very easy. I've sat back and enjoyed listening to you talk
Oh,
and
thank you.
hearing your journey, and it's been a great way for me to spend my morning
Great.
so far as hearing your story. Thank you so much for
I'm,
sharing.
I, I'd also like to say thank you to you and your team because, you know, the support has been amazing. You know, the odd message that I would, you know, message your team, I always got a response back, a well done or a brilliant. That's all encouraging. That's what we need. We need that positiveness to kind of carry on with our journey, you know. And so I'm very thankful too, Clint, you know, and thank you for today.
I'll pass
So,
that on to my team. I've got two staff, and they work out of the Philippines,
yes,
and they're awesome. My staff are called Ethel and Joe,
yes,
and they work very, very hard to answer
yes,
every question that we get into the help desk.
yeah,
And of
no.
course, if someone asks me specifically questions, then they can work out a way of responding either via content I've created in the past or encouraging them to come and join and get my help daily in the Paddison program support. But they work very hard, and I'm going to let them know that that
Yeah,
they
please
that
do
they got a
so.
shout out from you because they deserve
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, and you too. Goodbye. Bye, Clint. Thank you
Bye.
very much.